Get ready for some heart-pounding action as we dive into the world of zookeeping. In this video, we'll be sharing some unbelievable stories of brave zookeepers who found themselves face-to-face with some of the world's deadliest predators. From hair-raising encounters with ferocious lions to unexpected attacks from massive bears, these keepers have seen it all. So if you're ready for some adrenaline-fueled tales of animal encounters, then sit tight and buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. It was about 9:38 a.m. on the morning of May 29, 2017. Hamerton Zoological Park was just about to open its gates for the day and receive visitors. But a few fine details had to be checked and adjusted before allowing the public to enter the zoo. 33-year-old Rosa King headed toward the tiger enclosure. King was a zookeeper with tons of experience, 13 years to be exact. At that point, King had been the head of the zoo's carnivore section for 8 years, working closely with all kinds of big cats. She loved the animals and was very attached to them. When one of them died, King suffered as if she'd just lost a friend. Rosa always ensured to do anything to help the animals survive, but she also knew that each and every one of the felines could easily overpower her and kill her. As such, Rosa King was very conscientious about safety. Not only was she aware of all the safety procedures, but the woman would often instruct others in safety regarding the tiger enclosures. Time and time again, she reinforced a very important idea. Never enter any part of the feline enclosure if a big cat was present. Everybody knew Rosa King was reliable and very concerned with safety. That's perhaps what made the events of the day even more unexplainable and distressing. If this could happen to somebody so focused, so well-trained, maybe it could happen to anyone. And as it later turned out, it could have, at least in a sense. Rosa King worked hard. Her summertime's working hours were 45 hours per week, with a 6-day working week. But King's schedule had been busier than usual that May. By May 29th, the day of the gruesome events, she'd worked 9.5 hours overtime. Even more, King had volunteered to hand-rear a serval kitten belonging to the zoo, which had been abandoned by its mother. It was exactly like King to sacrifice her own free time in order to nourish an animal back to health, or ensure its safety. The woman had expressed an interest in working with animals since she was only 2 years old, and she had worked hard to see her dream come true. Now she was the head of the zoo's carnivore section, and she was as devoted to her passion as ever. That's why Rosa King spent almost the entirety of May 2017 waking up multiple times at night and feeding the serval kitten. Although for the most part she was her cheerful self, King's co-workers could see the woman was more tired than usual. Still, she had a job to do, and at about 9:38 a.m. on May 29, 2017, the job was simple. She had to enter the tiger enclosure and clean the windows. Sissip, the Malayan tiger living in the enclosure, had a habit of urinating on the windows. This made it harder for the public to see the feline, so keepers at Hamerton Zoo Park always had to make sure the windows were clean. The tiger enclosure had a safety system put in place. In order to get inside the enclosure, the keepers had to follow it and make sure every piece of the puzzle fit. In other words, the keepers were also personally responsible for their own safety. There were 2 gates securing the enclosure, a tiger-secure metal entry gate leading into the paddock, and a wooden gate with a wooden fence designated to keep the public away. But the procedure stated that before entering, zookeepers had to check where the tigers were located. Then they had to isolate the tigers in one of the areas away from the paddock, using guillotine-type vertical tiger slides. After the slides fell into place, the zookeepers had to check if the slides were in place before finally entering the paddock. Rosa King was very well aware of the procedure and had gone through it thousands of times with no incident. But this time, unbeknownst to the woman, things were a little different, which ultimately made the difference between life and death. Rosa King entered the paddock as usual. She left the wooden gate open, as keepers often did. After all, the wooden gate couldn't keep the tigers in anyway. That's why there were slides, and as far as Rosa knew, the slide was in place. But there was one small detail the woman had no idea about. The slide was locked in the open position. Why? No one knows for sure. It's possible that King herself had left it open the evening before and then failed to realize this on Monday morning, May 29, 2017. So despite knowing the procedure, despite knowing the risks and concerns, the 33-year-old woman entered the paddock, past the wooden gate, and past the metal gate. This strongly indicates she didn't know about the slide being locked in the open position. King then went to clean the windows. That's why she entered the paddock in the first place. Once she cleaned the windows, it was time to leave. She opened the metal gate, but she never got out of the paddock, because that's when Sissip, the Malayan tiger living in the enclosure, attacked her. There were no witnesses to the attack, so nobody can know for sure what happened exactly. But we know Rosa King was leaving when the tiger struck. The cloth and bucket she had used to clean the windows fell out of her hands. Then her mutilated body fell on the cold, hard floor. Rosa King was dead. With the zookeeper now dead, the tiger was very much still a danger. The metal gate and the wooden gate were both open. Sissip could have just walked out of the enclosure and wreaked havoc, causing more casualties. By then, families with children had already been admitted to the zoo, but luckily, Sissip never left the paddock, largely by chance. At about 11 a.m., a visitor named Frank York spotted Rosa King's body and raised the alarm. Members of the staff acted quickly. They closed the gates and they lured Sissip away and into a safe area by throwing raw meat over the fence. This way, the zoo managed to preserve Sissip's life. But as it later turned out, the zoo didn't possess any conventional firearms anyway. The zoo relied upon police officers to attend should a firearm be needed in dealing with an escaped animal. Had Sissip wandered out of the enclosure, the zoo would have had no way to act properly and would have had to wait for police to arrive. All this information was heard during an inquest on the 1st of July 2019. The inquest also heard Rosa King had suffered horrible injuries. A police investigation found no mechanical faults to the slides. The jury, alongside its conclusion of accidental death, said the zoo's procedure depended entirely on the keeper reliably following their training. This means the procedure was likely to fail at some point or another, because human errors do happen. Andrea King, Rosa King's mother, asked for people to remember her daughter for the person that she was and not for what happened. Remember her for all she did for the animals in her care, the support she gave to conservation and animal welfare charities, the love she had of all creatures, and the love and support she gave to family and friends, the woman said. Hamerton Park Zoo has since changed its safety procedure and has introduced a new system for tiger keepers that keeps them in contact with a colleague as they complete each task. April 28, 2018. Mike Hodge was leading a group of tourists through his big cat sanctuary, the Marikelle Predator Center. Hodge was driving the Lion Mobile through the park, the way the 72-year-old man had done it hundreds of times before. He loved animals, especially lions and other felines, and he loved sharing his knowledge with others. The day went smoothly, with the park's big attraction just around the proverbial corner. As the tour was drawing to its end, Hodge knew what was coming next was the ultimate highlight of this guided adventure. The tourists, he knew, were in for a treat. With South Africa now somewhat notorious for its lion hunts, the Marikelle Predator Center was a refreshing change of pace for people who wanted to be closer to the animals without killing them for sport. The Marikelle Predator Center was Mike Hodge's baby, his life's work, and one of his biggest dreams. Hodge had once been a mere trader in his homeland of England, his wife a hairdresser and shop owner, but the couple wanted more. So in 1999, Mike and Chrissy Hodge and their 2 children moved to South Africa. They had only one goal in mind: make a business of Hodge's dream of living among lions. In 2003, the couple started a lion conservation project on a farm some 18 miles outside Thabazimbi, an iron mining town in the Limpopo province. 7 years later, in 2010, the Hodges established the Marikelle Predator Center. No hunting was allowed in the park. Instead, it was a place where tourists could go and encounter wildlife in its natural habitat. The park's mission was simply to provide a fun, safe, and educational wildlife experience in the Thabazimbi area. In 2018, the park had over a dozen big cats, including white lions, cheetahs, and 2 Bengal tigers. Even more, according to the park's website, guests could stay in safari tents and hear the lions roar, hyenas laugh, and jackals calling. But nothing was more attractive to wildlife lovers than the park's Lion-Mobile tour. Mike Hodge guided the tour himself, driving the tourist-filled truck around the sanctuary among the free-roaming animals. The tour was the perfect way for tourists to get close and personal, but not too personal, with big cats. Here's what the sanctuary's website had to say about the Lion-Mobile tour. "I can promise you that Shamba will jump up and look you in the eyes. He also sits on top of the truck whilst we take the drive through the camp." It was a big promise, and Mike Hodge always wanted to deliver. On April 28, 2018, the day's group of tourists were all in the truck, held safe by a cage. This way, the tourists could come face to face with the lions without risking getting hurt. There were chickens on top of the cage. Hodge had put them there to catch Shamba's attention and lure him on top of the cage. Shamba was a 10-year-old male, which Hodge had hand-reared and bottle-fed himself. They were old friends. Still, Hodge knew the animals were dangerous and tried to minimize the risks any way he could. Once the truck got inside the enclosure, the chickens did their job. Shamba appeared out of nowhere, got on top of the cage, and began to feed. The tourists were more than amazed. They were delighted. They snapped photos of the lion, undoubtedly thinking about sharing them with friends and family. It was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience, and Shamba was beautiful, with the exact proud look a lion should have. But as his jaws opened wide to take another bite of the meat, there was no mistake. Those huge, sharp teeth could snap in half more than chicken bones. Luckily, there was a cage separating the potentially tasty group of humans from the mighty animal. After Shamba finished his meal, it was time for the tour to end. Shamba had already climbed off the truck. Hodge drove the vehicle to the exit gate. Shamba was still a little too close for comfort, but Hodge and his employees had implemented a now tried and tested routine in order to get the lion away from the vehicle and exit safely. Shamba was standing in the grass a few yards away from the vehicle when one of Hodge's employees called to the lion to lure it away. The man used meat to entice the animal, but Shamba seemed more reluctant than usual. He was sniffing at the grass as if he was undecided whether to continue walking or not. "Shamba, come on!" The employee outside the fence called again, throwing another piece of meat toward the lion. It was enough to convince the animal to keep walking. With Shamba now heading away from the truck, Hodge jumped out of the vehicle and headed toward the gate to open it. The man made a quick stop to check the grass and appeared to kick an object. Afterwards, he turned back toward the gate, but something happened, something inexplicable. It all happened in a flash. For some unknown reason, Shamba the lion broke the well-established pattern. Instead of focusing solely on the meat, the lion turned around, back toward the truck. That's when the animal spotted Hodge, who was out of the truck, which meant he was defenseless. Hodge knew how to interact with his animals, but some things can't be explained or avoided. The man started running for his life, but it was no use. He was no match to Shamba. It took a mere 3 seconds for the animal to close the distance between them. Hodge had almost made it inside the vehicle's cab, but the lion pulled him to the ground and bit down close to the man's neck. Then Shamba dragged the man further inside the enclosure. It was as if the man weighed nothing at all to the animal. Inside the truck's cage, the tourists watched in horror. Some of them began screaming and shouting for help. Others started crying, unable to tear their eyes away from the gory scene. "Get a gun," a man shouted. For a moment, Shamba seemed to let go of Hodge, but it was only that, a moment. The lion quickly grabbed the man again and dragged him behind a nearby bush. "Shoot," someone urged. A gunshot followed, and then another, and another, and another. There was no movement behind the bush. "Someone get a rifle, just in case," a man then said. Finally, an employee at the park managed to get a rifle and shot the animal dead. Mike Hodge was still alive, but badly hurt. His jaw was broken, and there were several gashes to his neck. The 72-year-old was rushed to the hospital, where he underwent life-saving surgery. A hospital photo showed Hodge smiling in his hospital bed, with a bandage on his neck and a breathing tube after the terrifying ordeal. Despite the photo, though, and Hodge's physical recovery, the man was left traumatized by the whole ordeal. The sudden aggression and subsequent death of the lion he had once fed from a bottle took a toll on Mike Hodge and his family. He is very upset about the loss of Shamba, and I think he is trying to put up a brave face, but he is really battling to come to terms with what has happened, said the family's spokesperson. In the vast savannas of Africa lives a mighty creature known as the king of the jungle, the lion. With their golden fur and piercing eyes, lions are a sight to behold. They are powerful creatures that command respect from all those around them. But with great power comes great responsibility, and lions are no exception. They are fierce hunters, with jaws that can crush bones and muscles that allow them to run at incredible speeds. But as wild animals, lions can be unpredictable, and their presence can pose a threat to humans. This was tragically demonstrated in 2013 when Diana Hansen, a young intern at a sanctuary in California, lost her life to a lion. But as wild animals, they must be treated with caution and respect. For this reason, lions are typically kept in strict safety conditions, with a team of 2 to 3 people working together to feed them and provide special safety equipment and protection for animal caretakers. Diana Hansen, a 24-year-old intern at the Cat Haven Conservation Park in Dunlap, California, understood the importance of safety when working with these powerful animals. She had a passion for animals from a young age, especially for those with superior strength, like lions, tigers, and leopards. As a child, she would draw pictures of these animals and proudly display them on the wall next to her bed, dreaming of one day caring for them. Hansen's passion for animals only grew stronger as she got older. As a student, she was incredibly independent and worked part-time to pursue her interests. She saved up money to travel to various ecological and conservation parks where she sat in safari vehicles and looked at wild animals with excitement in her eyes. It was clear that she was destined for a career in animal care. After graduating from Western Washington University, Hansen landed a 6-month internship at the Cat Haven Conservation Park. She was thrilled to have the opportunity to work with big cats and live out her childhood dream. During her time at the park, she shared many pictures on Facebook of her petting and taking care of the animals, along with happy comments about doing her dream job. It was a beautiful day on March 7, 2013, with blue skies and a cool breeze blowing. Diana Hansen, a 24-year-old intern at Cat Haven Conservation Park in Dunlap, was carrying out her daily duties with passion and enthusiasm. Hansen's favorite lion at the park was Kaz, a 5-year-old male lion that had been brought to the park when he was just 8 weeks old. He was carefully raised and nurtured to conserve his species, which is facing a declining population due to habitat loss and conflicts with humans. The park's breeding program for endangered species played a crucial role in their conservation efforts. On that fateful day, Hansen was cleaning Kaz's cage while talking on the phone with a colleague. Unbeknownst to her, the cage door flew open, and Kaz, attracted by her voice, rushed towards her. As the lion charged towards her, Diana's phone slipped from her grasp, hitting the ground with a sharp crack. Her heart racing, she frantically looked for a way to escape, but found herself trapped with no way out. In a desperate attempt to defend herself, she waved her arms and shouted, hoping to scare the beast away, but it was no use. Despite her efforts to escape, the lion pounced on her, using its sharp claws to grab her and pin her to the ground. The young woman was terrified to see the lion she cared for daily suddenly become so aggressive. With overwhelming fear, Hansen tried to get up and run, but the lion was too strong. In a moment of uncontrolled aggression, Kaz grabbed her head, breaking her neck and killing her instantly. Not satisfied with its wild animal instincts, the lion continued to scratch and bite Hansen's body, causing many serious wounds. When Hansen's coworker arrived on the scene, she discovered Kaz tinkering with the deceased woman's blood-spattered body. She contacted the police in a panic, and they hastened to the park. The scene soon became chaotic as everyone rushed to rescue Hansen, and an experienced staff member tried to distract the lion with loud noises and provocation over the fence, but to no avail. Ultimately, the deputy police chief decided to shoot the lion to assist in medical care for Hansen, but it was too late as she had already died at the scene. Hansen's death was a devastating loss for the conservation area, and the owner Dale Anderson expressed deep sadness and condolences for her family. The aftermath of the lion attack on Diana Hansen was as gruesome as it was perplexing. According to the coroner's report, the wounds on her body were inflicted post-mortem, suggesting that the 24-year-old was already dead when the lion began tossing her about like a rag doll. The cause of death was determined to be a fractured neck, likely caused by the lion's powerful paw. Meanwhile, investigators carefully looked into whether or not Cat Haven employees were adequately trained to handle the risks associated with working with dangerous animals. And as the investigation continued, one can only imagine the terror that must have consumed Hansen in her final moments, alone with a lion who had once been her beloved charge. Despite the fact that the lion had been raised by humans from a young age, its wild instincts had taken over, causing it to attack its prey. This heartbreaking incident highlights the dangers of working with wild animals, even those that have been raised in captivity. After the attack, authorities conducted tests on the lion's body to determine if any substances had caused it to become agitated or aggressive. The tests revealed that there were no issues with food or other stimulating substances. The lion's actions were purely driven by its natural instincts. The tragic death of Diana Hansen, a young woman with a passion for cat conservation, had left her friends and family reeling. According to Seattle area attorney Paul Hansen, Diana had expressed disappointment at not being allowed to enter the lion and tiger enclosures at the zoo. Despite the owner of the zoo, Dale Anderson, stating that safety protocols were in place, he refused to discuss them as they were part of an ongoing law enforcement investigation. Anderson himself is the only person permitted to enter the enclosure when lions are present. Despite the devastating incident, Anderson is keen to assure the community that the zoo has an impeccable safety record. In fact, since the zoo opened in 1998, there have been no incidents since this tragic event. It's clear that Diana's legacy will live on through her dedication to protecting these magnificent creatures. Diana's loved ones were comforted by the outpouring of support from the community. Many people attended her funeral to offer their condolences and pay their respects. While Diana's passing is a tremendous loss, her legacy will live on through the memories of those who knew and loved her. Her family and friends can take solace in the fact that she was doing what she loved before her untimely demise. Her dedication to animal conservation serves as an inspiration to us all, reminding us to cherish every moment and pursue our passions with fervor. Thank you for joining us as we remember the life and legacy of Diana Hansen. If you found this video informative and moving, we encourage you to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. See you in the next one. Alexandra Black was an intelligent, committed, and dedicated girl. Her family and friends described her as compassionate and with a heartwarming smile. Passionate about animals, she wanted it to be her career. She was among the fortunate 100 handpicked to pursue a major in animal studies from Indiana University's Center for Integrative Study of Animal Behavior. It's a close-knit program on the Bloomington campus, reserved for well-deserving students, and Alexandra happened to be one of them. University Director Kara Wellman recalled Alexandra as being quiet and sweet. Alex, as she was known to everyone, might have gotten her passion for animals from her Aunt Virginia, who had also recently interned at a wolf park caring for rescued wolves. When Alexandra was offered a job at the Conservators Center in Burlington, North Carolina, she jumped at the opportunity. She would finally live her dream of getting up close to wild animals, especially the big cats. The Conservators Center was founded in 1999 in Mebane. It was then relocated to a vast, spacious sanctuary spread across 45 acres of wooded lot in Caswell County. The center is home to over 80 animals and 20 species, including lions and tigers. The wild cats included 16 lions, 3 tigers, 2 leopards, 14-year-old Matai, and his siblings Calvin, Katrina, and Savik. The center attracted 16,000 people annually and was always about rehabilitating rescue animals living in unacceptable conditions. It promoted walking tours and encouraged people to know more about the animals. Matai was always a very shy lion who was born at the center after his mother was confiscated and brought there in 2004 by the USDA. Matai always relied on social cues from his siblings when he needed to respond. When there were visitors or when he heard a new noise, he would always follow them to check it out. The attack on Alexandra was unfortunate, and experts are yet to fathom why Matai attacked Alexandra in such an aggressive manner. Alexandra was kind and gentle with the animals. Some say she even calmed them down, and they liked her presence. What exactly went wrong on that ill-fated day of February 27, 2019? On the day of the attack, Alexandra went about her usual duties. She would need to clean the lion's cage and feed them soon. It was not like she had never done it before. She was trained and been working 10 days at the center. The safety protocol was clear, and everyone knew it. Walk into the cage, make sure the animals are in a separate enclosure with the gate firmly locked. A mistake could mean a fatality, so there just wasn't room for one. Unfortunately, the separator gate was open when Alexandra went into the lion's enclosure. How it happened and who opened it is now a matter of investigation. Was it Alexandra who forgot to close it? We will never know. It was 11:15 a.m. as Alexandra went about cleaning the cage. She suspected nothing. Once she had finished, she prepared the deer meat for the big cats. She did not even hear Matai enter through the separator gate and into her space. Matai was a beast of a lion. It was the first time he saw a human up close. What triggered in the animal has no explanation. But in that instant, Matai went from a shy rehab kitty to the deadly apex predator he was meant to be. He crept up behind Alexandra, who did not hear a sound. When the girl turned around, her blood ran cold. She was staring directly into the eyes of Matai, the gigantic lion. Rather than scream, Alexandra used the knowledge she learned at university well. Perhaps it didn't save her life, but she undoubtedly saved the lives of several others that day. Alexandra didn't panic. She waved the deer meat at Matai and tried to keep him calm. The lion instead pounced on her, paws extended, ready to grab and take her down. Imagine 600 pounds of paws, claws, and jaws lunging at you. At that moment, Alexandra had to know that she was done for. Matai tore into Alexandra, his claws digging into her flesh. He clawed at her neck and body, cutting her body open with lacerations all over. He lunged at her several times, stopping short of eating her. He then grabbed her neck and dragged her back through the gate into his enclosure. It wasn't until 30 minutes later that center workers jumped into action. No tranquilizer gun was on hand. Instead, firefighters were called in to hose the animal with water. The attempt proved futile. Matai stood over Alexandra's limp body, and no one could even guess if she was alive or dead. The CEO of the center, Douglas Evans, finally managed to locate his tranquilizer gun, but he had never had a reason to use it. Loading it, he seemed awkward and struggled till even the dart broke inside. Alexandra's family would later stress this inefficiency, pointing out how she lay at the mercy of the lion for 3 hours till real help arrived. When Sergeant Michael Griggs arrived with 2 other deputies, they sprang into action. In the meantime, Evans managed to get a blowgun and shot 2 darts into Matai, which had no effect. Sergeant Griggs then took the ultimate decision to shoot the animal. Later, Sheriff Tony Durden explained, "The stress level was high. I know they're not used to having a 600-pound animal and then having a young lady lying on the ground. So, stress led to them making that decision." Matai was shot 8 times till he reeled over and died. When officers rushed to Alexandra, she had already bled to death. Her autopsy shows she was dragged by the neck before she died. Alexandra suffered deep lacerations to her neck. Alexandra's death rocked the nation and led to several questions, even going as far as the state legislature, where her aunt, Virginia Black, urged lawmakers to reinforce a House bill that would require more stringent regulations on sanctuaries and zoos to practice routine safety drills and law enforcement-approved safety plans. An animal trainer later revealed that a 28-inch wide lion's play ball blocked the gate and prevented it from closing, but the center rejected it, saying it was not an explanation. Outside the steel barrier of the enclosure is a 4-foot-high chain-link fence, which visitors are warned not to lean on. Had Matai not gone for Alex, the day would have been a nightmare. Animal rights group PETA had even sharper words for the tragedy, saying USDA inspections were meaningless. Brittany Peete, director of captive animal law enforcement for PETA, issued a statement saying humans and captive animals will keep losing their lives as long as unaccredited roadside zoos, like the so-called Conservator Center, keep imprisoning dangerous animals for entertainment. Alexandra's aunt felt her niece would not have died if the authorities had been equipped and prepared for such situations. Months after Alexandra's death, her family still questions the center's role in her death. They felt the employees assumed Alex was dead and contemplated saving the lion instead. What is your opinion? Did Alexandra have to die? North Carolina is one of just 4 states with no laws controlling ownership of non-native big cats. Its rules for owning other wild animals are generally lax. Should things change? Perhaps what Virginia Black says. I think what happened to Alex is a call to action. What do you think? Tell us in the comments below. And remember to hit that notification and subscribe to this channel.